Welcome back to Thesis Statement, folks. I am Josh Price, your first favorite bartender and third favorite author, and you are, presumably,
the audience.
Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, horror, and more specifically, B-horror.
Oh my God!
Those movies with that strange cult following that your
spooky friend
just cannot stop talking about. Now, before we really dive into that subcategory of the genre, let's get a better idea of the scope of the genre in general. Horror is one of the oldest forms of storytelling. When it comes to film, horror used to be high-class cinema. It was, generally speaking, adaptations of great works like Dracula and Frankenstein, where they took these classic tales and simply put them on screen. Some of the greatest directors of all time were known for their horror films. And the same goes for some of the greatest actors. The genre was built on taking itself seriously. I know it's hard to believe now because there's so much schlock and so many meta-narratives, but horror was pinnacle filmmaking. So, what changed?
Hey, what happened?
I think to answer that question, we need to really dive into what horror is as a genre. It's very multifaceted. It can range from the very serious to very comedic. Horror can be an action adventure, or it can be a period piece, or a conversation piece, or an art piece. Horror has the potential to span the breadth of all art. It also has the potential to be very good
and hilariously bad.
This genre has the potential, much like fantasy, to speak to some really big issues. It has the capacity to dip underneath our defenses and put these nuggets of thought in front of our eyes without us even noticing it. Horror is a very hyper-criticized genre. It's constantly put under the microscope, and in a lot of cases, for good reason. But it does get a lot of unnecessary flack. Because while criticizing and analyzing film does help us improve as both audiences and filmmakers, it kind of misses the point of almost half of the entire genre. A lot of these films have cult followings for a reason. They're schlocky and gory and over the top and fun. And you know what? Let me back up just a little bit. B-horror has been around forever. It is just as old as the rest of the genre. At the same time, you had the height of the career of Vincent Price. You had the height of the creature feature. Movies that were low budget, and while not necessarily intentionally bad, they were made the way they were
on purpose.
Maybe they weren't trying to make you laugh, but they weren't trying to be terrifying. They were just trying to be entertaining. The concept of the creature feature evolved into intentionally schlocky films, giving us the grindhouse genre and eventually films like The Evil Dead. The early careers of directors like Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson were built upon love letters to this genre. There were passion projects that, like The Evil Dead, made them who they were, and eventually, in Peter Jackson's case, the reason he was given The Lord of the Rings was partially based upon those films he had done in his early career. They knew the visuals he was capable of achieving and accomplishing, and they were confident in his ability to direct The Lord of the Rings based on his B-horror films. But that doesn't really explain why they're so beloved. So, what is it then?
What makes these movies so special?
It's a complicated answer. And at the same time, it's not. These movies are gory and over the top and goofy, and they go all out. They're fun, and they don't take themselves too seriously for the most part. And the ones that do take themselves too seriously take themselves so seriously they swing back around to being fun and goofy and campy again. Sometimes they're intentionally campy because that's the way the director wants it to look. Sometimes they're campy because they just couldn't get a budget. And in both cases,
They're endearing.
Because one is trying to do something entertaining with no money, and another is trying to mimic that style with way too much money. Both of these projects tend to achieve the same goal. They're entertaining. These B movies, they're not usually scary. They're not usually well written. They don't tell good stories.
In fact,
You can talk over the whole movie and still understand the entire plot because they tend to be very simple. And that might be the point. Watch parties are very much a thing when it comes to B horror. Get a bunch of friends together, get some loud, crunchy snacks, and you can bounce back and forth between laughing and enjoying this ridiculous movie that's in front of you and talking to your friends. You can have a conversation and still enjoy the media. Or you can make a game out of it. You can laugh at the plot holes, the inconsistencies, the lack of budget, the often silly plot points and ridiculous dialogue. These movies lend themselves to being social events. I've personally gone to Sharknado marathons. Those movies are supposed to be terrible. They take some of the highest end CGI and they make it look like it was made with a potato. And it's fun.
these movies are awful.
But they're fun to watch because they don't take themselves too seriously. Going back to Sam Raimi, I mean, not everything has to be serious or heavy or talk about something intense. Sometimes a movie can just be Army of Darkness, which is just Bruce Campbell versus a bunch of really shitty CGI. And really, isn't that why we go to the movies?
Be entertained?
Entertainment doesn't have to be stimulating or engaging. Sometimes it can just be fun, campy, frolicking in the darkness. These movies tickle a part of our brains that makes us laugh at how bad they are. And they laugh with us.
They're in on the joke.
They're just trying to give us a good time. They're just trying to be entertaining. And they almost always achieve that goal. And that's why they have such cult followings. That's why Sam Raimi was given control of such big films. That's why Peter Jackson got the Lord of the Rings. They understand their fan bases. And they understand their material. And they love the product that they put out. Those are the kinds of directors that give you films that are worth remembering. Whether they're schlocky and goofy and gory, or they're high quality like The Lord of the Rings, or they're action movies like the Spider-Man films, we remember them because of the love that was poured into them. It's why these directors are given these projects. And it goes back to the early days of horror, where these great directors were given these horror projects because they were so important.
B horror is important.
Because it gives us a chance to relax. It gives us a chance to enjoy each other. And just simply enjoy a product. No strings attached. So the next time your spooky friend asks you if you want to come over and watch some really shitty B movie, I think you should say yes. Because it's probably going to be more fun than you think.
It's not gonna be a good movie.
It's going to be a great time. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Every bit of interaction helps. If you feel so inclined, hop on over to our Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to all of our podcasts and video episodes and exclusive access to our show, The Sip. You'll also get exclusive merch. We recently teamed up with Patreon for their loyalty program, so our existing patrons get merch every few months. Shout out to all of our existing patrons, and shout out to all the new patrons who are joining after watching this video. We appreciate you. We see you, we hear you, we love you. Please drop down in the comments. Let me know what your favorite B horror movie is. That said, I gotta say goodbye. Oh my gosh. Why? Why right now?